Hello, hi my loves. You are welcome to another tutorial on olives. In this video, I'll share with you how to cut the lower part of this dress, which is an asymmetric skirt. I want you to keep on watching, stay subscribed, click on the like button, and let's get right into this simple tutorial. For this project, I'll be using denim with a printed fabric. Denim is mostly known as jeans fabric. Okay, so we will need the length of the full dress, which is 52. Let's do a little breakdown of the dress. This is the lower part from the waist down to somewhere at the back, which is longer, and the lower part again has a flare. Okay, so what we are going to do is to measure from the waist to wherever we want the actual fitted skirt to be. Let's say 3 to 4 inches or even 5 inches from your knee. So please take note of your waist to the length of the fitted skirt. Meanwhile, mine is 27 inches. That's my waist to the skirt length. This is 27. While drafting, I use shoulder to waist measurement of 17 inches. Okay, so we are going to deduct this 17 inches from the full length of the dress, and I have 35 inches, and this 35 inches is the measurement from the waist down to where the full length of the dress will be. Okay, and so we are now going to subtract 27 inches from this 35 inches. Okay, so we can also determine the length of the flare. Do you get? I'll subtract this 27 inches from 35, and the result is 8 inches, and this 8 inches is going to serve as the length of the flare. The length of the fitted skirt is 27 and the length of the flare is 8 inches. Okay, let's move on to draft our skirt. I went ahead to cut an amount of fabric for the front. This is the front, which is on fold, and for the back I have 2 pieces, and we will draft the front first. I'll draw a straight line to serve as the starting point, and I'll mark my waist to hip, which is 10.5 inches. I'll put this into a straight line. I'll also move on to measure from the waist again down to the full length of the skirt, which is 27 inches, half inch for joining allowance, which will give me a total of 27.5 inches as the length of the skirt, including allowance. I'll mark this across and put it into a straight line. I have my front pattern here. I'm going to measure the waist measurement I have, excluding the allowance, and from the center front of the skirt I'll measure the same thing. On the hip, I'll measure quarter of the hip. Quarter means you divide your hip by 4. Whatever my result, I'll place it from the center front and also mark it as shown. I'll then input the measurement of my waist to knee, my actual knee, which is 22 inches. Above this 22 inches, I'll mark up 2 inches, and that will be my new knee measurement. You might as well use 2.5 inches. I'll put this point into a straight line, so that will be my knee line. Now whatever I have here, I'll make sure I have the same thing here and subtract about 1 inch or 1/4 inch or even 1.5 inch, depending on how much dipped in you want the skirt to look like. And whatever measurements I have from here, which is the knee line, measure the same thing at the hem of the skirt and put this point into a straight line, and that is it. I'll move on to the hip area and also curve the hip. Right on the waistline at the center front, I'll go down by 3/4 inch. I'll connect this measurement to the side this way, and I'll move on to add about 1/3/4 inch side seam allowance. But when I get to the lower part, we don't need much allowance at that point, so I'm going to reduce it to about 1 inch allowance or 1/4 inch allowance and connect all these points together. We are done with the front part of this skirt. I'll move on to the top side, and add half-inch joining allowance to the waistline. Let's cut, and as I cut, I'll make sure I notch the hip, the knee. Here is my back. I've drawn a yellow line here, which is going to be my center back, which will change soon. I made a mistake, so I had to change my center back. But all the same, you place your center front to align with your center back, and you also make sure that your front waistline aligns with the back waistline or the starting point. Take note that we reduce the center front by 3/4 inch, so there is no way the waistlines will meet. All I did was to make sure that the starting point at the side aligns with the starting point of the back. Okay, here I'm tracing the hip line onto the back. I also trace the knee line onto the back pattern. So here is the mistake I did. I went ahead to cut, but that was not my plan. What I had to do was to tighten the center back, okay? Because on the back piece, while drafting, we tighten the center back of the bodice, so it has to reflect on the back skirt as well. So what I did was to mark a new center back and trace the side of the skirt first, okay? So if you want to tighten just like I'm doing, that is what you are supposed to do. And I'm tracing the center back as well. So this is my actual center back. Okay, so we are ready to tighten the back. This is the bodice, and I tightened it by 3/4 inch. So I'm going to use this same 3/4 inch to tighten from the center back, just going by 3/4 inch and connect it to the hip line. Then from this yellow line, okay, I'll re-input my waist measurement, my actual waist measurement plus side seam allowance, and reconnect this side seam to the hip line like this. So from the starting point, this is the shape of my back. Okay, so I'm going to use a marker for you to see better. So this is the new center back starting from here, and I'll move on to follow this center back to mark 1 inch zip extension. So my zip goes this way down to the hem. Moving to the top of the skirt, I'll come down by 1 inch from the center back to reduce zip bulge, and I'll connect it to my actual waist measurement excluding the side seam allowance. Then I'll move on to add half-inch joining allowance to the waistline. Yeah, so now our back is also ready. I'll move on to cut and make sure I notch the hip and then the knee. Having done all of that, I went ahead to pin the center back of my skirt, assuming I have joined it. Okay, I'll also pin the side of both the front and back together. I'll do this to both sides of the skirt, and this is how it looks like. Now I'm going to fold from the center front, holding the center front as well as the center back, and here I'm trying to turn it inside out. You can as well do it at the wrong side. Okay, so here is my center back. I'll hold it this way, and the side facing me is the center front, and here is the side seam. Okay, so here I'm measuring from the hem of the skirt to where the knee is on the front for guideline, and then I'll go down by about 1.5 inch. Here we are trying to create the asymmetric effect on the fitted skirt. Okay, so which means that the depth of my asymmetric skirt will start from here, and I'll make sure it blends to the center back like this. Okay, so wherever you want it to start from, as deep as you want, make sure it connects to the side and meets at the back. We are not reducing the center back. The length of the skirt remains as the center back. All you are doing is to alternate the center front, and they all have to connect together. So this is what it looks like. Okay, I would want the front to go more high because we'll be overlapping the flare. So if this is my knee line, I'd rather go up probably by one. Yeah, maybe by one. I really don't want to go deep, but I still want to make sure the style comes out nice. So I'll keep the side seams in place. So again, I'm going to take it this way, take it this way, still connect to the side, and then still meet the back. I'll measure from here through like this to the side. I have 21. Let's see the back. Okay, the back seems to be almost 20. Front 21, back 20. It's still the same, so I'm just going to use 21. At the back, I'll make a little pleat. So this is our front and this is our back. Now that we know the measurement, which is also going to be the circumference of our flare, we can now go ahead to cut our flare. Previously, I was demonstrating that the full length of my actual dress is 52. Okay, we have the length of the fitted skirt and also the length of the flare. I measured how long I want the fitted skirt to be, which is 27. I subtracted the length of the fitted skirt I want from the full length of the lower part of the dress. So after subtracting, I have 8 inches. So this 8 inches is going to be for my flare. And when we measured, we had 21 inches. So that is going to be the circumference of our skirt. Meanwhile, when I looked at the style, I realized that the style is not just a normal flare. It looks like a double flare. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to cut a full flare for just the front of the skirt, a full flare for just the back skirt, so we can have a double flare at the end of the day. By measuring just the front like this, excluding the side seam allowance, we had 21 inches. That's the circumference of just the front. To calculate the radius of a circle, a full circle, we are going to divide the circumference by 6.28. So now our circumference is 21, and we are going to divide it by 6.28. Dividing 21 by 6.28, 3.34. The full flare is going to be 2. Okay, and we will have to join them together. So for the sake of that, I'll approximate whatever I have here, the 3 to 5. Okay, so approximately 3.5. So now the 3.5 is the radius of our circle. That is what we use to cut our circle. Now full flare means that you are going to fold your fabric into 4. So if you are going to do double of that, that means you are going to fold your flare into 8. I folded the material into 8 again. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so that is 8, and I folded it this way. This part is on fold and this part is also on fold. I'm going to mark 3.5 here. I'm going to follow this pointed part and just mark 3.5. 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. We know that the length of our flare is 8 inches. So this is 8 inches. We'll need ½ inch to join this side to the skirt, and then maybe ½ inch to hem. Okay, since I have enough here, after adding every allowance, it should be 9. Okay, but I'll add 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. That means it's going to be longer than the actual length I wanted. If you don't want to follow this, you just measure from the tip here. Okay, whatever measurement you have here, you take it and you take it round till you get here. So this is one flare, the second one is inside. Okay, I'll just take it out. So what I will do is to grab one end like this, okay, and divide it. For the one that will be the front, we're going to cut both ends, okay. This will be the front, okay. It is now into two. I slashed here and slashed here. Now one side of the front will be joined to the back like this, okay, as side seam, and this side is the part where we will curve it in. We'll give it that curve that is on the style, okay. So here's the front piece of the flare, and it is two. I'm going to fold it into two like this, okay, and I'm going to notch here. And this is my notch here, okay, and we are going to use here as the center front, and here will be the side front, okay. We'll be using half inch to join to the skirt. That's the fitted skirt, so I'm going to mark this half inch like this, and all we are going to do is to curve from this half inch like this. Make sure we curve it till we get to this side, the notch part. No matter how you curve it, make sure it blends into the flare, okay. I actually used 2 yards of printed fabric to cut the flare, just 2 yards. So you can say you may use like about 4 yards for the whole style. I have worked on the center front band. This was a total of 3.5 inches. I first pressed it equally, and afterwards I just press half inch in, so I could have about 2.5 inches as the width of the band. After pressing the allowance inward, I went ahead to still press the center so I can have a crease line. I also pressed the center of the front, so I'm going to match this center crease line with the center crease line of the skirt like this. We just have a top stitch on both sides of the band. Thank you for watching. The full tutorial of the dress will be uploaded on Saturday by 4 p.m. So turn on your notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.